My phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. It was my younger sister, Chloe. A picture of pink and blue balloons, a banner that read, "Welcome Baby Amelia," and a caption tagging me. "So excited for your shower next week, sis. Can't wait to celebrate." My blood ran cold. My name is Sarah, and I'm usually the most organized person I know. I thrive on schedules, to-do lists, and knowing exactly what's coming next. That's probably why the last few months have felt like a slow-motion train wreck. It all started with a casual comment from my mom during our weekly Sunday call. "Chloe's been looking a little pale lately, hasn't she?" she'd said, her voice laced with that familiar blend of concern and nosiness. Chloe is my younger sister, 5 years my junior, and the undisputed golden child of our family. Whatever Chloe did was always met with enthusiastic praise, while my accomplishments were often met with a polite nod and a, "That's nice, dear." I'd long since accepted it, though it still stung sometimes. "Mom, Chloe's always been a bit dramatic," I'd replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Probably just a cold." "Oh, I don't know," Mom had mused. "She's been awfully tired, too. And she hasn't been out with her friends much. Maybe." She'd trailed off, leaving the unspoken possibility hanging in the air. My stomach had clenched. The last thing Chloe needed was another grand narrative. She had a tendency to exaggerate the smallest things. A sniffle was a sinus infection. A late period was a sign of a serious underlying condition. The thought of her latching onto the idea of being pregnant sent a wave of exhaustion through me. A few weeks later, the pregnancy rumors started swirling in our family group chat. Aunt Susan mentioned she'd seen Chloe buying ginger ale and crackers in bulk, a classic pregnancy craving according to her extensive daytime television knowledge. Uncle Mark chimed in, recalling a conversation where Chloe had mentioned feeling a bit queasy. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost gave myself a headache. Then came the phone call from Chloe herself, about a month ago. I was at work, trying to meet a tight deadline, when her name flashed across my screen. I sighed and answered, bracing myself for whatever drama was unfolding. "Sarah, guess what?" Her voice was high-pitched and bubbly, the kind of tone she used when she wanted something. "What is it, Chloe?" I asked, trying to keep the impatience out of my voice. "I'm pregnant!" she practically shrieked into the phone. There was a beat of silence on my end. Pregnant? Chloe? It seemed unlikely. She'd been dating Mark, her on-again, off-again boyfriend, for about 6 months. They were still in the posting cute couple photos on Instagram phase, which usually preceded a dramatic breakup. "Are you sure?" I asked cautiously. "Positive," she exclaimed. "I took like 5 tests, all positive." I didn't know what to say. Part of me was genuinely happy for her, if it was true, but another part of me felt a knot of unease tightening in my chest. Chloe and responsibility weren't exactly the best of friends. "Well, congratulations," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "That's big news." "I know, right?" she giggled. "Mom and Dad are over the moon. They've already started talking about baby names." Of course they had. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of baby talk. My parents were ecstatic, constantly calling Chloe and showering her with gifts. The family group chat was flooded with articles about pregnancy symptoms, baby gear recommendations, and ultrasound photos, which upon closer inspection looked suspiciously generic. I tried to be supportive, asking Chloe how she was feeling and offering to help with anything she needed. "Oh, you're the best, Sarah," she'd gush. "Actually, there is one thing." And there it was, the inevitable request. "Mom and Dad are throwing me a baby shower," she'd continued, "but they're so busy with their golf trips and bridge club. I was wondering if you could maybe take over some of the planning?" I should have said no. I had a demanding job, my own life to manage, and frankly, a growing suspicion that something wasn't quite right with this whole pregnancy narrative. But Chloe had that way of making you feel guilty if you didn't jump to her rescue. And my parents, of course, chimed in, emphasizing how much it would mean to Chloe and how good it would be for the family. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. I spent countless evenings after work researching venues, comparing catering options, and crafting elaborate Pinterest boards for decorations. I even started knitting a ridiculously soft baby blanket, despite not having picked up knitting needles in years. Chloe, meanwhile, seemed remarkably unconcerned with the details. She'd occasionally send me a vague text message with a color scheme she liked or a type of cake she was craving, but she never offered to help with any of the actual work. It was always, "Oh, Sarah's got it covered." My unease grew with each passing week. Chloe's morning sickness seemed suspiciously selective, only appearing when she had to do something she didn't want to. Her baby bump looked different every time I saw her, sometimes barely there, other times suspiciously round. And she always seemed to avoid any serious questions about her doctor's appointments or the baby's development. I tried to talk to my mom about my concerns, but she brushed them aside. "Don't be so negative, Sarah," she'd said. "Just be happy for your sister." The baby shower was scheduled for next Saturday. I'd finalized the venue, sent out the invitations, with a registry that seemed to include every baby item known to humankind, and even arranged for a ridiculously expensive floral centerpiece. I was exhausted and, if I was being honest with myself, deeply resentful. Then came the Instagram post. I stared at the picture on my phone, my heart pounding in my chest. "Welcome, baby Amelia." Amelia? Chloe hadn't even mentioned a name, and the date on the banner, next Saturday, the same day as the shower I had meticulously planned. I clicked on the comments. My Aunt Susan had written, "Oh, Chloe, she's beautiful. Congratulations." My cousin Mark commented with a string of heart emojis. Had I missed something? Had Chloe already had the baby? I frantically scrolled through Chloe's profile, looking for any announcement I might have missed. And then I saw it. A post from 3 days ago. A picture of Chloe holding a newborn baby girl, wrapped in a pink blanket. The caption read, "Our little miracle, Amelia Grace, arrived 3 days early. We are so in love." My jaw dropped. 3 days early? That would mean she gave birth last Tuesday. Why hadn't anyone told me? Why was there still a baby shower planned for next week? A wave of nausea washed over me. Something was terribly wrong. I immediately called Chloe. It rang twice before going to voicemail. I hung up and tried again, then again. No answer. I texted her. "Chloe, what is going on? Why didn't you tell me the baby was born? And what's with the baby shower next week?" A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "Sarah, could you please call me? It's about Chloe." My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the first ring. "Mom, what's happening?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Chloe posted on Instagram that she had the baby, but the shower is still on for next week." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, my mom sighed, a heavy, weary sound that I rarely heard from her. "Sarah," she said slowly, "there's something you need to know about Chloe's pregnancy." My blood ran cold. I had a terrible feeling that whatever she was about to tell me would change everything. "What is it, Mom?" I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. Chloe wasn't actually pregnant," she confessed, her voice barely audible. The phone slipped from my grasp and clattered onto the floor. I stared at the ceiling, my mind reeling. Not pregnant? But the baby! The Instagram post! I picked up the phone, my hand still shaking. "Mom, what are you talking about? What about the baby in the picture?" That's a doll, Sarah," she said softly. "Chloe, she faked the whole thing." I couldn't breathe. A doll? Faked it? Why? Why would she do that? I managed to choke out. She wanted the attention, Sarah," Mom explained, her voice laced with a mixture of sadness and exasperation. "You know how Chloe is. She saw all the fuss everyone made when your cousin Jessica was pregnant, and she wanted that for herself." I did know how Chloe was. Attention-seeking was practically her middle name. But this This was a whole new level. "But the baby shower?" I asked, my voice rising in disbelief. "I've spent weeks planning it. We've spent hundreds of dollars." That's why we need you to still go through with it, Sarah," Mom said quickly. "Chloe, she's in too deep. If we cancel now, everyone will know. It would be so embarrassing for her." Embarrassing for her? What about me? I had been lied to, manipulated, and used for weeks, and now they wanted me to pretend like everything was normal? "Mom, are you serious?" I asked, my voice filled with disbelief and anger. "You want me to throw a baby shower for a baby that doesn't exist?" "Please, Sarah," she pleaded. "Just for Chloe. Just this once. We'll explain later, say it was a surprise early arrival or something. No one will know the difference." "No, Mom," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. I can't do that." The thought of standing in front of our family and friends, pretending to celebrate a non-existent baby, made my stomach churn. I wouldn't be a part of this ridiculous charade. "But Sarah," Mom started to protest. "No, Mom," I repeated, cutting her off. "I'm done. I'm not going to enable Chloe's lies anymore." I hung up the phone, my hands still trembling, but this time with a newfound sense of resolve. The baby shower was next week, and everyone thought I was going to be celebrating the arrival of my niece, Amelia. They had no idea that the balloons and the welcome baby banner were all for show, a carefully constructed illusion to feed my sister's insatiable need for attention, and they certainly didn't know that I was about to pull the plug on the whole damn thing. The next few days were a blur of frantic phone calls and increasingly desperate text messages from my mom and Chloe. They tried every tactic in the book: guilt-tripping, pleading, even a few thinly veiled threats about family harmony, but my resolve held firm. I wasn't going to go through with the baby shower. I started making calls. First, the venue. Thankfully, I had booked with a flexible cancellation policy, and after explaining, vaguely, that there had been a change in plans, they agreed to refund my deposit. Next, the caterer. They were less understanding, but I managed to negotiate a partial refund. The floral centerpiece was a lost cause, but honestly, at that point I didn't care. Then came the harder part, informing the guests. I decided to send out a group email, keeping it brief and vague. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the baby shower for Chloe scheduled for next Saturday has been postponed indefinitely. We apologize for any inconvenience. I hit send, a wave of relief washing over me, quickly followed by a surge of anxiety about the inevitable fallout. The first response came within minutes. Aunt Susan, ever the gossip, replied all, "Postponed? Oh dear, is everything all right? Is Chloe and the baby okay?" I resisted the urge to reply with the truth, and instead sent a private message. "Everything is fine, Aunt Susan. Just a change of plans." My phone started ringing incessantly. It was mostly family members, all wanting to know what was going on. I kept my answers vague, repeating the same line about unforeseen circumstances. Chloe, of course, was blowing up my phone with angry texts. "How could you do this to me, Sarah? You're ruining everything." "I'm not the one who ruined everything, Chloe," I texted back, my fingers flying across the screen. "You did. You lied to everyone." "It was just a little white lie," she retorted. "It wasn't hurting anyone." "It wasn't hurting anyone?" I scoffed, though she couldn't hear me. "Chloe, I've spent weeks planning this shower, not to mention the money that's been spent." "And for what? For a lie?" The day of the scheduled baby shower arrived, and I braced myself for a barrage of angry messages and phone calls. Surprisingly, the morning was relatively quiet. Maybe everyone had finally gotten the message that I wasn't going to budge. In the afternoon, I decided to treat myself to a spa day. I needed to de-stress and escape the suffocating cloud of family drama. As I was enjoying a much-needed massage, my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. It was Chloe. She had posted a picture of herself looking tearful with the caption, "So heartbroken that my baby shower had to be canceled. Feeling so alone right now." I rolled my eyes. The drama never ended with Chloe. I decided to ignore it and try to enjoy the rest of my spa day. When I got home, there was a voicemail waiting for me. It was from my dad. His voice sounded strained and unusually serious. "Sarah, could you please call me? Your mother, she's not doing so well." My heart sank. Even though I was angry with my parents for enabling Chloe's behavior, I still cared about them. I immediately called him back. "Dad, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. "Your mother, she had a bit of a shock today," he said, his voice hesitant. "Some of your aunts and uncles. They started calling her after your email about the shower. They were asking questions and, well, your mother ended up telling them the truth about Chloe." My breath caught in my throat. So the truth was finally out. "And how did Mom take it?" I asked cautiously. "Not well, Sarah," he admitted. "She's very upset, embarrassed mostly. She feels like she's failed as a mother." I felt a pang of guilt. I hadn't intended for my mom to bear the brunt of Chloe's deception. But at the same time, a part of me felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The truth, however painful, was finally out in the open. "Dad, I'm sorry Mom is upset," I said. "But Chloe's actions have consequences. She can't just lie to everyone and expect to get away with it." "I know, Sarah," he sighed. "Your mother knows too deep down. But it's still hard for her." We talked for a while longer, mostly about my mom and how she was coping. My dad sounded weary and defeated, a stark contrast to his usual jovial self. I knew this whole situation was taking a toll on him too. A few days later, I received a text message from Chloe. It was surprisingly short and to the point. "Can we talk?" I hesitated for a moment. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to pretend she didn't exist. But another part of me knew that we couldn't just pretend this hadn't happened. We were sisters, after all, even if our relationship was currently in tatters. "Okay," I texted back. "When and where?" We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. When I saw Chloe sitting at a table in the corner, she looked pale and drawn, a far cry from the bubbly, attention-seeking sister I knew. We sat in silence for a few awkward moments before I finally broke the ice. "So," I said, taking a sip of my latte, "you faked a pregnancy." Chloe's eyes welled up with tears. "I know, Sarah. I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what, Chloe?" I asked, my voice flat. "Sorry for lying to me? Sorry for making me plan a baby shower for a doll? Sorry for the embarrassment you've caused our family?" "All of it," she sobbed. I wanted the attention. I saw how happy everyone was for Jessica, and I wanted that too. Mark, he's been distant lately, and I thought if I was pregnant he'd pay more attention to me." My heart ached for her, despite my anger. Chloe had always been insecure, always craving validation from others. But this was a drastic and hurtful way to get it. "Chloe, you can't build a relationship on a lie," I said gently. "And you can't expect people to care about you if you're not honest with them." We talked for a long time that afternoon. I told her how hurt and betrayed I felt, how exhausting it had been to plan a shower for a baby that didn't exist. She listened, her eyes filled with remorse. "I know I messed up, Sarah," she said finally. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I promise, I'll try to be better. I'll get help." I didn't know if I believed her, but a small part of me hoped she meant it. Our relationship was damaged, maybe irreparably so, but she was still my sister. In the weeks that followed, Chloe did start seeing a therapist. She also had a difficult conversation with Mark, who, surprisingly, didn't immediately break up with her. He was hurt and confused, but he agreed to give her a chance if she was willing to work on herself. My relationship with my parents was also strained. I felt like they had prioritized Chloe's feelings over mine, enabling her behavior for far too long. It took several honest and sometimes difficult conversations before we started to mend our relationship. They finally acknowledged that Chloe's actions were not okay and that my feelings were valid. The whole ordeal left me feeling drained and disillusioned. It made me realize how much I had always put my family's needs before my own, often to my own detriment. I decided it was time for me to focus on myself for a change. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do, setting boundaries with my family, and prioritizing my own well-being. A few months later, I received a text message from Chloe. It was a picture of her holding a positive pregnancy test. This time there was no fanfare, no elaborate announcement. Just a simple text. "It's real this time." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally learning to be honest, not just with others, but with herself. I texted her back. "Congratulations, Chloe. I'm happy for you." And for the first time in a long time, I actually meant it. The road ahead might still be bumpy, but I had a feeling that things were finally starting to change, not just for Chloe, but for all of us. The fake baby shower had been a painful lesson, but it had ultimately forced us to confront the lies and unhealthy patterns that had been simmering beneath the surface of our family for far too long. And sometimes, that's the only way to finally close the door on the past and start building something real.